Hello everyone, welcome to Powerline. I'm your host Skynet, and I'm here with the segment, Why Should You Play? And if you see the thumbnail, then you know that we are talking about great nature. That's right, great nature. So I have to give a shout out to my buddy Evan, because without him I would not have been able to do this properly and or accurately. So, Evan, you rock. So, with today, as you guys know, we're going to break down this segment into its various parts, being 1, the clan name, 2, 2 would be if it is aggro, tempo, or control. 3 would be its strengths and weaknesses. 4 would be the key cards, and 5 if I decide if it is within the meta or not. So tonight we've got 6 builds that we're going to talk about, which I have deemed to be playable. So we're going to talk about Honorary Professor, Big Belly, Leopold, Arusha, Tesser Fox, and Hamsuke. I believe those are the ones worth mentioning about. I know people may be upset about Polaris and may be upset about Minette, for those people who like to play Minette, but I just don't feel that those are viable builds, and they're more of neutral builds at that point. So guys, pull up to your seats, get your pencils out, and let's talk about some cards. So let's talk about some generic cards. So these cards are always going to be in your Great Nature deck, regardless of your build. And I've come up with 3 cards that are the generic cards, which one would be Crown Tiger. I think arguably is the best card outside of the G-Zone for Great Nature. Crown Tiger, your 9k grade 2, which allows you for multi-attacks, especially if the card that's being restood has a super special ability that you don't get to hit on the first time, you get to use it the second time. So I think Cry Tiger definitely is a great card for deck and for the clan, and it goes in all decks. My next card would be the Sage Saint Professor Big Belly Stride. That card also should go into all builds for Great Nature. It enables, you can split its power that you get and its ability, which you can create some mind games with your opponent, where they have to figure out which attack they want to take. Because if the ability hits, you pretty much get to restand all your regards, or if the one with the power hit, it's usually the one that you want hit because it has an ability to go out. So again, it creates a very interesting dynamic for your opponent in which how they have to guard. And lastly, it would be the Omniscience Dragon Afank. It's definitely a great card because it doesn't allow your units to get retired. So the Narukami stuff that retires and binds, and the Kagura stuff like the Denial Griffin won't be effective on your turn. The Hamsuke build has been around for quite some time, especially with the original 3 Hamsuke's Knights. And then they got support in a character booster or an extra booster, one of the two. And its main grade 3 is actually the Fountain Pen Hamkichi. So yeah, and I would classify the deck as aggro. 1 would be, or even tempo. It's kind of somewhere in between there. Normally, if you couldn't decide whether it's between the two, it would go in a tempo. But I'm going to go more along the lines of aggro, just because it has the early game and it's not restricted to G-Break. So by grade 2, if you have your setup of Hamsukes, you can literally hand the board and just start swinging and attacking and throwing 4K here, retiring there, putting this on the bottom of the deck, unflipping here. There's many things you can do at G-Break, or instead of G-Break, at grade 2, or even grade 3 before you stride. So I think it's one of its key strengths is being able to function outside of striding. With that said, some of the strengths for the deck, again, I touched on it a little bit, would be it's an interesting early game. Again, not restricted to G-Break. If played properly, the deck 1-for-1s, so whatever card you use will necessarily get replaced in some sense of fashion by getting out more Hamsukes or countercharging. So again, a lot of 1-for-1s. And it's very power centric as opposed to its negative, which I'll get to it. So one of the weaknesses of the deck is it's very Hamsuke dependent. So again, I said that you have to put in Crayon Tiger in the deck because Crayon Tiger is the best card in the deck. But Crayon Tiger doesn't do anything outside of. Crayon Tiger just does its ability, but doesn't help for the Hamsukes because the Hamsukes all need Hamsukes to do their nonsense. So you're spending extra cards to protect your Crayon Tiger. Most of the grade 2s, the Hamsukes, because there's 3 of them, are AKs. One would be the original one that replaces itself. Again, it's a lot of AKs for the grade 2s, which is not really beneficial because again we're in a 9K base life right now. Also, upon the Hamsukes themselves, there is no draw power. No draw power whatsoever. And when you're striding, there isn't any Hamsuke that can help. No, there's no Hamsuke stride, really. So you're relying on your strides at that point to function with your Hamsukes. But Hamkichi himself functions with the grade 1s and grade 2s. So there's no synergy with the strides with the Hamsuke. So again, that would be the weakness. No draw power, AK grade 2s, Hamsuke dependent, and there's no advantage upon retiring the card outside of the Stride Legion. Key cards, any of the Hamsukes, that's pretty much it. It's a tribal deck. And I would go with this clan is just not meta. I don't see this going to regionals outside of it being a joke. And that's just my opinion. So that's it for the Hamsukes. The newest introduction to the clan, which would be Arusha. Arusha was introduced in the last extra booster for Great Nature, and she came out of nowhere. It was a surprise. She is literally the only restander for the clan. I would definitely classify Arusha as a tempo build because she gives you an ability that you could use outside of striding. So in the event that you think that maybe you can save a card from your hand by not striding, you can go for her special ability, which is she's a restander, which is very great. I would put her under as a tempo deck because you have to build around her ability in order to work, and if you're doing it several times, you can slowly gain advantage of your opponent. As many people have said, restanding your Vanguard is the strongest mechanic in the game outside of locking your opponent out of guarding. So with that said, one of her strengths is, again, she's a restanding Vanguard and the only one in Great Nature. Very splashable and flexible. So you can put her as a backup Vanguard in any of the decks. So if you feel your Hamsukes need a little power, throw them in the Hamsukes. If you need to put her in Big Belly, put her in Big Belly. She literally can go into all the decks and just functions as a Vanguard. And our last strength would be flexible trigger lineup. So you can build a Risha with any trigger lineup and you're not wrong. You can go with extra draws, you can go extra stands, you can go with a high crit ratio if you want to try to crit them out. The sky's the limit, really. Literally, the sky's the limit. The downside to the deck, again, one of the weakness is you have to make a decision whether you want to stride or you want to restand. And again, those are two different beasts. Your stride, upon striding, you're sitting on a 26k with triple drive and whatever abilities that your stride has, or you're going in for an 11k base, not including boosting. It's an 11k base that you're gonna get twin drive off twice. So there's I say it's a weakness, but in actuality, it's kind of the same, depending on the scenarios. Again, you're discarding one card to stride, and you're netting 3. Arusha, you have to discard one card upon reaching success in order for her to restand. So you're still drawing 3 cards regardless, but it's different. Another weakness is you need success 2500, which, again, in most games, easy to do since it's great nature and you should be drawing a lot of cards. But the downside is it's actually success 2500, 25,000? 25,000, excuse me, 25,000. Where if you're against your control matchup, it's actually a lot harder to get to. And if you have a bad hand, it's very hard to get to. So that would be one of the weaknesses. The deck is extremely rear guard dependent because that's how you get your 25,000. And as most Great Nature decks do, your rear guards tend to die at the end of your turn, and most of the Vanguards have abilities that help you at the end of turn, but so there's really nothing there. So those would be the weaknesses. Key cards, anything that has to do with success helps the deck out. And again, Crown Tiger as well, but anything that has to do with success will help out because again, there's cards that allow you to I think Soul Blast 1 or Counter Blast 1 and bam, you're at success. So anything that to really help increase the power would be perfect for Arusha. And lastly, I would say Arusha is sadly not meta. I can see her being played in one of the meta decks, but I don't see her being a meta deck on her own. Next, I'm going to talk about the Magic Scientist Tester Fox. That's right, we're going to the Legion build. This build has been, I don't want to say this. This build has saved the clan at one point in the transition from Limit Break to Stride. And although a very short time, it did what it needed to do. It was a promo, so Great Nature didn't get this, at least for us, until we were already into the Stride format. So they kind of missed out on those 2 to 3 months, those 2 months where that we had Legion. So they had to wait a very long time in order to get something, which is again still unfair, but that's a whole different subject. So anyway, so Tester Fox. The deck is tempo. It's able to grind out the game, and because of its ability, the game can go on forever. Because the way that you play the deck, you just amass so many resources that your opponent is almost unable to guard. It's what Blade Wings are. What Blade Wings are is what Tester Fox was. And if you're able to break ride the Honorary Professor Chat Noir on it, broken. And then there was one promo that I'm like all over the place. There was one promo that Great Nature got, which was like super expensive, but it was mainly for this deck, where it was the Soul Blast 2 draw card, and that enabled you to dump your soul because you kept rewriting Tester Fox to Legion back triggers or other useful cards in order to continue on the grind against your opponent. So I think it was taping Fox or something. I don't know. Anyways, so its tempo, I would say its strengths are it abused the end of turn mechanics because at the end of turn, with your Legion and if you broke road Legion, so many things went off that you'd still be there for another 5 minutes resolving all these effects at the end of your turn and just amassing a pile of cards in your hand. And it was a lot like playing Blade Wings. It's just very, very hard to kill deck. It has an amazing draw engine, a very, very good draw engine. I was playing it for a little bit. Really, really good. And your Great Rare manipulation is perfect because you're able to, upon Legion, put back triggers. And if you retire one of the Legion mates, or Legion mate or Legionnaire, you can again put more cards back, primarily triggers in the deck. So again, you can continue to do this until your deck is either A, mostly cards that you need in order to continue to loop, or trigger out your deck so your opponent, so you can kill your opponent or heal and kill your opponent. So again, a very strong deck. One of the weaknesses though is a Legion deck. So you are very reliant on having to play Legion and you're missing out on all pretty much the extra cards, or the extra abilities that your strides give you. The deck is inflexible because there are so many cards that you have to play in order to make that deck work. So you have to play your Coiling Duckbills, you have to play the Grade 1 Soul Blast 2 draw card, you have to play the Legionnaire, you're going to play a Crayon Tiger. So the deck just, what you would have in options slowly becomes limited the more and more stuff that you have to play. And lastly, it falls prey to rush because again the deck is tempo based. If someone just flat out comes and rushes you down, it's very hard for you to guard yourself and pretty much set up. Especially when they attack you, you try to attack them back and kill the rear guards, and they just slap down cards again to the field and attack your rear guards and attack you. You start to end up losing out until you're able to start Legion and getting all your effects off. So, yeah. Key cards for the deck, I would definitely say Chat Noir is by far one of the best cards for the deck because on the point of Break Red Legion, you amass so many cards at the end of turn because so many things are attacking, and then Crayon Tiger, so many things are attacking even more. Your Legion mate is an amazing grade 2 for the decks. So you have to run it because it's a Legion deck. And your Duckbills. Your Duckbills are perfect because again, on the field, you put them on the field, something dies, you get more cards, and the honorary assistant, I think his name is Mike Saburo. Definitely, I think another key card for the deck because it enables you to go get your grade 3. Whether or not I think this deck is meta, I'm gonna say no. Although I want to say yes, but I'm going to say no. I think the deck I think it outlived its time. I think in the beginning where Stride was still being fleshed out, it was great. And I think even during the Legion time, it would have shown if it was out during then. But I think where we're at right now, where Legion or Stride is so prominent, that the deck just doesn't have a place anymore. Very few Break Ride Legion decks still exist. Next, we're going to go to the Honorary Professors, Chat Noir and Chat Sauvage. So, we got Chat Sauvage during the Actual Booster, or Technical Booster, the Genius Strategy, and it helped the Honorary Professor build out. I think it's great. I will classify the Honorary build as aggro. Even though it's a Break Ride style type deck, that one turn and all the turns leading, all the turns leading up to your Break Ride turn are just throw cards down and attack, throw cards down, attack, and then when you get to your Break Ride turn, nonsense happens. But I guess, I want to say tempo, but I think it's more aggro, to be honest. But I'm gonna change that. I personally wrote down aggro. I think the deck is a tempo deck because everything leads up to that Break Ride Legion turn. Excuse me, not Break Ride Legion. Everything leads up to the Break Ride Stride turn because of Chat Sauvage. So again, I'm gonna classify it as tempo. Its strengths, it has a heavier multi-attack than all the other decks because of how the deck plays. It has an insane amount of draw because of the Break Ride, and you get the unique ability to break Ride Stride, which is only seen in this deck, which is kind of cool. I haven't seen it in person yet, but on paper, it looks phenomenal. It looks amazing. So if you guys don't know, Chat Sauvage's ability, when you Break Ride on top of it, you can discard when you Break Ride Chat Sauvage on top of Chat Noir, you discard a card from your hand. It has to be one of the Honorary Professors, and you get to stride 2 particular strides on top of it. And those 2 strides, depending on your game, either one of them you're probably going into. But because you did that, you also get the Break Ride effect on your stride. So now you have it's like being on a heartbreak. But it is so strong and so powerful, and you're getting all these 4+4Ks, and at the end of turn, you're going to be drawing all these cards. So I definitely think it's a very strong deck. I would say the downside of the deck is it is extremely counterblast heavy because of everything just needs a counterblast, and the resource management there is not really there because you get those at the end of turn. So while you're in your turn, you're just like flipping over counterblast left and right. The deck is also Break Ride reliant, so if you're on Chat Sauvage the whole game, you don't get the main gimmick out of your deck. Also, it's very Rear Guard reliant, so against your control matchups, the deck starts to fall prey and lose its strengths if someone's locking or killing off your stuff. And there's a possibility of deck out because you're drawing so much. And you'd see it. You would actually see it. Key cards, Go Home Toad, Reader Pig, and Mike Saburo. So I would say those cards are all important to the deck because Go Home Toad and Reader Pig can attack from the back row, which only increases the amazingness of your Break Ride Stride turn. Mike Saburo can go and grab any of the grade 3s because you need to discard a grade 3 for Chat Sauvage, and you need to fix whoever's on your Vanguard. So I think it takes a lot of setup work, but I think the deck is actually really good, and I will go out and say, Honorary Professor, you are meta. Let's talk Big Belly. So Big Belly has two grade 3s that are pretty much going to be your Vanguards, and pretty much in the deck, unless you want to throw something else in, which is, I guess, okay. So you're going to have Teacher's Cane and the famous Professor. I'm going to classify the deck as tempo because the deck really doesn't win you the game until you start striding, and its main, you'll pretty much be winning towards the mid to late game, not so much in the early game. So that's why I put it as tempo. Strength, it has a great control matchup because a lot of the cards that you can play, and some of the strategies you have, say that they can't be retired or have resist, like the Sleeping Tapir. So with that said, I think it definitely has a decent control matchup. Another strength would be as flexible rearguard. You can play whatever you want within the deck. I know with the new Big Belly though, you want to play things with success, but again, between the two Big Bellies, you can play things with success, or you can play some of the older stuff. It really depends on you, because a lot of the older stuff dies at the end of turn. Some of the newer stuff doesn't. So it's really up to you. The draw that the build offers is also quite good. You'll be drawing a lot of cards at end turn, primarily 3 or 4 cards, unless you decide to go ham. Then it's like 5 or 6 cards. But some of the weaknesses of the deck is that the deck is very combo reliant. So let's say you have your Crayon Tiger. If your opponent ends up locking or killing off your Crayon Tiger through Denial Griffin, you're pretty much scrambling on how to salvage the rest of that turn, because your Crayon Tiger, or whatever card you have that didn't have resist, is the one that had an ability that you need to go off. So usually a combo can get disrupted if you're not ready for it. Also, it's very slow to start. The deck wins towards the mid to late game, not so much in the early game. Sure, you can kill your opponent off your first stride if you triple crit them to death, but the odds of that happening, it's low. It can happen, but it's low. And no one really thinks that they're going to crit to win on their first stride. Okay. So, and lastly, you're prone to deck out, because the deck does draw a lot. So you're often left managing your cards and your deck, thinking about how much you have left in there and what you can or can't do. One of the key cards for the deck would be Lesser Rider Grey Belly. And I would definitely classify this deck as a meta deck because it isn't within Stride format. It's got its second grade 3. It's got its future Stride self. So definitely I think this deck is in the meta. I know that this clan is going to get more support in the future. So I look forward to what this clan can definitely do. Alright, lastly, my favorite build of Great Nature, the man of the beast of the hour himself, the deck build, Leopold. So handsome. So the main grade 3s for Leopold would be Leopold and Leopold Reverse. This is definitely one of the cross-ride builds. Do you play the cross-ride? Do you go into cross-ride? Sometimes, depending on if you need it. Because I know there's a lot of aggro decks that can run train on you if you don't do it. So let's go into the next one. So Leopold is actually very aggro. Because it's a limit break deck, it can function outside of striding. So if your opponent wants to play the grade 2 game on you, you slap down a limit break remover, or you just play the deck as is and you just go ham on their face, really. So Leopold and Leopold Reverse can definitely do a lot of damage before you even start striding, or in the event that you can't stride. So one of the weaknesses of the deck is its high critical count, because you can. Since your deck can function outside of striding, there's tend to be more a focus to run more crits in order to deal more damage to your opponent earlier. Your rear guards are flexible because you can literally play whatever you want within the deck. So you're pretty much playing the Binoculars Tiger, you're pretty much playing Sleeping Tapir, or you're playing, you definitely go playing your Crown Tigers, but you can play literally whatever you want within the deck because it's, nothing is, no specific named rear guards for Leopold. Another strength would be its cross ride. So when your opponent flips over Blaster Blade and you know that you're about to have a very rough time, if you can go into your cross ride, you're sitting on a 13k base, and now they have to boost with whatever is behind Blaster Blade, or they have to put power on Blaster Blade, and you can't swing at it, as 12k Blaster Blade trying to poke you. So definitely being a cross ride is extremely helpful, and the deck is not G reliant, which is another strength. So you again function out of striding. The downsides to the deck, though, is your Leopold's 10k base. Now, how I see the deck is I usually am on Leopold all the time because at the end of turn, for my limit break, I can counterblast one, bring something back. That to me is perfect. But Leopold's also a 10k base, which means you can get hurt. I've had it happen to me. It hurts. Leopold also has a bad control matchup. I don't want to say bad, but unless you're playing the things with resist, most of your flexible rear guards will die. So you have the Binoculars Tiger, which is great because whatever it attacks, you get the 4K something. But you pretty much want to run the Sleeping Tapir because it has resist. So you can, but in order to get the 4K, you have to attack the Vanguard. So you have to give up something in order to get something to fix your control matchup, your bad matchup. The deck is very counterblast heavy, so when you go into Leopold Reverse, you're going to be counterblasting. Here or there in order to get things, or if you're in regular Leopold, you want to continue to counterblast to get all the stuff that you died back. So the resource management is actually bad. So we pair those two: counterblast heavy and bad resource management. And there's no real excessive drawing in the deck because you give up your tempo, your slow advantage, over being able to kill your opponent extremely fast. Yeah. There are no key cards for the deck outside of your Crown Tiger because there's nothing really specific for it. The Koala, the starter Koala is probably the best one for it because if your Vanguard, whatever it boosts hits, you give 4k to something, and at the end of the turn it dies and draws. And lastly, it's not meta. It has its own stride, but all the other strides for Great Nature are better. So you tend to have it in the deck, but there's no reason to run it. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave it in the comment section below. If there's another clan that you would like me to do, again, leave that in the comment section below. And let me know what you think. If you disagree with anything that I said about the clans or these builds, if you think that I classified them wrong, by all means, start a conversation in the comment section below, and you'll hear from me. Later.